This is Robert Demers for Conman here at the New York Comic Con, and I'm here with Curtis Weeb, the writer of Peter Panzerfaust and the current Rat Queens. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
All right. How's the convention been treating you?
Good. I didn't end up being here on Thursday, but I was here yesterday, and I took a photo, and it was like packed shoulder to shoulder, the entire floor all the way across the Artist Alley. So it's been busy and crowded, but good.
And a lot of people coming by for your booth?
Yeah, lots of people getting signatures. We have a couple, specials. We have a Rat Queens blank cover. We have a Peter Panzerfaust blank cover. So yeah, people coming by to get those exclusives and chatting and getting signatures. It's good.
What was it about comic books that made you want to write your own?
Well, I actually really only got into comic books, in the mid 2000s. I didn't really grow up with them. A friend of mine basically thought that I would like Walking Dead, and it was, I think, issue 26 or 27, and I had no idea that there were comic books that weren't superhero comic books, and that, I guess, just opened my eyes to a lot of independent stuff, and I loved it. So I've been doing my own writing, short stories and novels and whatever, but then once I read independent comics, I was like, I would want to write these, and so I just started trying.
Were there any writers, even outside of comics, that inspired your own writing?
Mostly it was I grew up reading things like Tolkien. I was a big fantasy nut. So he really opened up my imagination as far as liking fantasy. And then a lot of my inspirations just have come from comics in the last few years, and it's actually like a mixture of television and comics. Brian K. Vaughan is a big influence on me for writing. I love his characterization. Ed Brubaker was a big influence on me just for his kind of noir-style crime stuff. Kirkman was too. He kind of started off the same way I did. Just started trying writing comics and made a go of it, and now, he's very successful at it, obviously. So there's a lot of people that have inspired me, yeah, for sure.
Well, when you begin to write a story, what is your thought process to create the outline and overall story?
Man, it's I don't like admitting this too often because people ask me this and I feel weird about it, but I generally just sit down and I start writing. I have an idea for the script that I have, that let's say it's like a issue Peter Panzerfaust, and I know generally it needs to happen at the beginning and the end, and the general flow of the story, but I don't really do an outline. I just know in my head what I need to do, and then I sit down and I write the issue from beginning to end. Mostly my structure is very much the same every time. I basically will, write panel 1, page 1, do the description, write the dialogue. But sometimes I'll do it in reverse, where I'll write out, if it's a really dialogue heavy scene, I'll actually write out the dialogue kind of back and forth for pages, and then I go in later and then I actually break it down by panels. So, yeah, I guess that answers that question.
Peter Panzerfaust has been a very widely well-received book. What was the inspirations for the creation of it?
It was just a conversation between me and Tyler, the artist on the series, that we'd been wanting to do a book together for years, and it just kind of a couple emails back and forth, and it was something that came about. We both had a big passion for World War II. We played World War II wargaming, and we both read a lot about it, about the history. We're both just kind of really interested. So, and then from there, it was just through a series of emails, the Peter Pan thing came in, and it was, as I started to develop it from their original idea, it just fit together really well. The kind of the good versus evil, and kind of the themes that I wanted to work with in this series just fit well in a World War II setting.
And because of that, you've know well about the World War II history for the authenticity in the book.
Yeah, so it's something that I've always been interested in since I was a teenager. So, of course, I do additional research the more when I'm moving the characters around in France and at what time period. I try to make the research as local as I can, but overall I have a pretty good sense of the flow of the war and everything that led to it, and the resolution. But I was reading things like Citizen Soldiers by Ambrose, who was the writer behind The Band of Brothers that was eventually adapted by the HBO. And I also love Band of Brothers, which you can see has an influence in our story. There's the interviewed scenes when the men are older, and then we go flashback to when they're younger, so that had an influence on it as well. But yeah, it's just something that I'm constantly looking into. So it was an easy fit.
Recently, Rat Queens came out, and I believe that it's been well received so far. And I haven't yet to read it myself, but it's on my list. So, what was the inspiration behind that one?
It's just a matter of wanting to work with Rock, the artist on the series. He does amazing character illustrations, and I met him 2 years ago actually at New York Comic Con, and ended up getting to chat with him and really liked talking with him, and I liked his work a lot. He was doing Vessel at the time. So I just stayed in touch with him, and I asked him what he liked to draw, and he said he loved to do like fantasy-themed things, and I've been looking to do a fantasy book for a long time. So from there, I just started coming up with a few concepts, and then Rat Queens originally kind of came out as like Sex and the City in a fantasy world. Obviously, we have our characters are younger, but that's the idea. Is like, what would people of our 20-year-olds in our generation, how would they act in that setting? So that's kind of the way I'm modernizing it. But yeah, that's kind of the origin for it.
And do you find that there is a big difference between writing Peter Panzerfaust and the Rat Queens coming up with the different styles?
Yeah, definitely. Like Peter Panzerfaust is a little bit more of a somber kind of. I guess it's I'm working with a lot of deeper themes in the story, so it's more of a serious thing when I sit down to read it. Whereas Rat Queens is like, what kind of dick joke can I put into this comic? And that's really, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the comedy, and it's really different. Like when I actually sit down to write it, it's a completely different headspace. So I try to write them separately from each other. I try not to do a bit of Peter Panzerfaust and a bit of Rat Queens. I try to do a full script either side, just so that I stay in that headspace between the two.
And Rat Queens is an all-female team book, and nowadays that is rare with the few exceptions nowadays. Do you think this is something that should be more out there and have more a spread?
I mean, yeah. For me, it was just I thought it would be interesting because I hadn't seen a lot of it, and I guess in a lot of ways I'm kind of tired of the idea. People always say they want a strong female character, which seems to people seem to think that means that they're they don't need anybody, or they have no flaws and they're kick-ass or whatever. I'm just making them real people, and I think that's what makes them strong female characters, is they're just people like everybody else, but they have a really cool job, and they make a lot of money, and they're young, so they like to party. They're just, that's what I really wanted to focus on, and it just seemed like to have 4 females on the team just seemed to really work for me. So, yeah, that's what the inspiration to make it an all-female team was.
Now, without spoiling too much, because we know we don't want that, can you give us a little insight on what's coming up for Rat Queens and Peter Panzerfaust?
Yeah. So Peter Panzerfaust, we just wrapped up issue 15, which is the end of the 3rd arc with Felix. So basically from there we're going to the 4th arc, which is going to be about Tiger Lily, and something basically happens to her. If you've read the 3rd arc, something happens to her that is a pretty bad experience, and so the next one is all about her, I guess, getting revenge. So the next arc is called The Hunt, and it's all about Tiger Lily and what happens to her in the 3rd arc. And then Rat Queens, this arc is, people are, I guess, expecting the plot to go one way and to deal with the assassins and everything like that. There's going to be a pretty big game changer in issue 4, which basically makes that completely irrelevant. And that's really the plan with the Rat Queens, is to always build in a direction. And I've already seen a lot of people that either didn't like the book or on forums saying oh, this plot is so predictable. It's a classic, D&D story. There's not a lot going on there. But we're going to subvert it. So issue 4, they think it's going that way, and then bam, we're going to change it, and it's something completely different. So you can expect that with Rat Queens. There's always going to be the unexpected, I guess.
Well, thank you very much for talking to us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the con.
All right. You too, man. Thanks a lot.